Lord. Hello, welcome everybody to the 6570 Family Project Podcast. You guys, I am so excited to have on here today the Keene family, and we are just going to be talking all about how they are showing up in the world, how they are leaders, but also, in fact, how they are showing up as leaders in their family and what that has done and how that has moved their family forward, both on a micro and a macro level. So, first of all, welcome to the podcast, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate being here.
Oh, I'm so excited. We connected maybe, I don't know, a few months ago, sometime over the summer, 2021, kind of like 2020, seems like a blur for many of us out there. And it's this weird time warp thing. So I think it was over the summer of this year, but I'm not positive. And so why don't you tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get started. But you guys are so fascinating. I can't wait for them to learn about you.
Thank you.
No, she wants me to start. Well, let's see. So we've been married for 20 years now, and we have the 5 kids. Our first kid was born when we were stationed overseas, and a medical emergency basically brought us home ahead of schedule from that duty station. And as we bounced around the United States for the next 10, 12 years or so, we had a larger and larger family. And we saw early on that we have some kids with special needs. And as time went by, we learned how to cope with that, how to live with that, how to work around that, how to work through that. And we eventually discovered that much of what we do there is stuff that we could share with other families so that they could get a benefit from that as well. And so for us, I'm retired from the Navy now, and we're here in Maryland, close to DC, and our family, we homeschool. And what other kind of stuff would we say?
Well, we are passionate to help families. We really want to reach out specifically to special needs families as a scholarship-based type of outreach. Eventually, that's our main goal. But right now, we're actually coaching all families who really want to have success, who need some support with some baseline health issues that we're extremely capable of helping people with. We've had so much experience and have some great tools to help families, reduce their brain fog and anxiety and help manage some ADHD type symptoms, et cetera, and then help them really gain their family vision and where do they want to go with their family, and then talk about how are they going to get there. And in the meantime, how are they going to help their kids be independent and be self-confident and be financially responsible before they leave home to understand how to live in the real world. And we help them teach that inside their own home while they also have a really amazing family culture that they can celebrate.
Oh, that's so amazing. And I know, because of everything you guys have been through and learned along the way, because no one knows what life is going to throw at us at all, right? So we always have to be able to learn on our feet, and that's part of what leadership is, and this that we're trying to develop. So can you tell me a little bit more about the challenges in your family for our listeners so they can know and relate?
Absolutely. So it was sort of a series of strange challenges, some resolved, some have not yet, but are still doing better than they were supposed to, according to doctors. Our firstborn had a stroke, and at birth, we didn't know if he would walk or talk. We had no idea. Doctors couldn't say. So that he had seizures at 22 hours old, which was our first indication. And we were medevaced out of Italy into Germany, where we spent a couple of weeks trying to figure out what was going on. Thankfully, he is amazing. He recovered well before anyone expected him to, and then was, for most things in his life, pretty well advanced. So that was a miracle. Our second child has a whole battery of unexpected issues that she was born with, which mainly manifest as learning disabilities and scoliosis and some other things like that. That again, we have really walked with her hand in hand, completely unwilling to ever give up. and never willing to accept that she wouldn't be able to do something, even though we were told she wouldn't repeatedly. She does, and she does it better than you'd ever expect. So she's amazing. She's such a blessing, and a hard worker. What a good heart she has. And so then the next one had asthma. So we worked through that for a number of years, learned a lot there. Number 4 actually has his own humongous batch of issues that he was also born with. Among his diagnoses would be global developmental delay, nonverbal autism, and Lennox-Gastaut epilepsy, which is actually a very rare and deadly form, one of the 2 most severe forms of epilepsy that exist in children. And so again, he's doing far more than they said he would. We've done almost 3 years worth of intensive neurodevelopmental program with him. We've learned and implemented everything we possibly can, and continue to do so. And he's just such an amazing teacher to us. And I think, for so many people who meet him, it's just this amazing experience. It's really enriching, and he's a great kid. And then we have our youngest, who had all the battery of allergies. So tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, soy, and dairy. So that was exciting. We got to learn how to revamp our entire family diet to at least accommodate him and still have good holiday meals. And we did it. So no one eats gross food here.
Okay.
Without, some of our experience.
Anyone that has anything can relate. That is what I'm hearing for sure. And wow, you guys. So I hear all of that, and I just hear resilience for sure. That is what I hear over and over again, is just resilience for you guys, and resilient leadership for you guys to rise above. Not after, because you're not after with any of your children, of course, but during and within all of these challenges, and after emergency and these type of things. That's remarkable, you guys. Like,
Thank you.
Seriously remarkable. And so I'm curious then, with the type of leadership that you're having now, which we're definitely going to get into, but I'm curious, did it come along? I know it grew with these challenges that you guys have faced as parents, but also where did it come from before? Did you carry leadership and this self-led discipline and that into the marriage, into parenting, or did it develop along with all of these challenges you guys have faced?
I'll let Katie answer for herself, of course. For me, growing up in a little farm town in Eastern North Carolina, stuff like Boy Scouts or ROTC classes in high school would be the only place that I could say you really got exposure to leadership, maybe team sports and stuff like that. We had discipline in the home, since my father was a school teacher and a principal, and my mother a nurse. There were faucets of discipline and leadership that came through that, and their parenting style and that sort of stuff. And then for me, wanting to do well academically in high school, that was probably the real beginning of self-discipline on my part. And then I'll just say, determined to make it on my own, so that my parents, because I was also from a big family, wouldn't have to put another kid through college. And so I decided I would join the Navy and take care of myself. And then, that grew and grew and grew, because even though I did really well in high school academically, I got into some really hard programs in the Navy, academically and otherwise. And, I found that I was always like middle of the road, right? I was never top of the class. I was never the bottom of the class. I was never the fastest person or the strongest swimmer or anything like that. So, it was always just like you're right in the middle, having to fight for just everything, right? In a merit-based promotion system. And so for me, I think that's probably where a lot of it came in, because I had done all of that stuff before we had our first kid.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very curious, where are you in the family? As far, you had many siblings, you said, where are you in the family?
I was number 3 of 4.
3 of 4. Okay.
I was number 3 or 4. So there was going to be a time where the 3 older kids were all going to be in college simultaneously. And for a elementary school principal and a nurse, even though they had the 2 incomes, having 3 kids in high school simultaneously and another kid, or I'm sorry, having 3 kids in state universities simultaneously, I thought, like, wow, that's going to be a real strain on these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
facing that myself coming up. I'm quite petrified.
Well, the Navy doesn't cost anything. And some folks would joke, they'd say the only school I'm going to pay for you to go to is the Naval Academy, which of course is paid by tax dollars. But I didn't go to the Naval Academy, so I picked that one up.
Goodness. Katie, what about you?
I think for me, it's really just been an evolution of experience after experience after experience building into me, because I was born into a military family. And so I was moving before I was aware of what moving was, and so my life was really filled with amazing experiences, things most people don't get to do, but it meant a lot of loss
Right.
of community and friends and home. And, I had to really learn to focus that, wherever I was home. And I needed to learn to make friends quickly and enjoy where I was while I could. And, I think my mom, she got me involved in Girl Scouts for a little while, and, ballet for a little while, and piano for a little while. And, everywhere we would go, there was something that wasn't there and something that was new. But we also lived through, things like a really bad earthquake, like one of the worst earthquakes Los Angeles has ever seen. And so I watched my dad have to lead through that. And so I think, for me, it's really just been a culmination of things. And then having the children, with their issues, again, it just had to dig deep from my life experiences of just getting through. And you just stay loyal to your family, and you just stay loyal to knowing God's not left you, and you just do your best and walk in faith. And that's really what I think I've done and we've done. So.
Wow. Well, I think that's a perfect move into my next question for you guys. So then all of this that you've brought into and developed through your marriage and parenting, how does that affect how you actually parent and how you approach the kids and their challenges and what they're doing? Because I can guarantee that you guys, with everything that you bring to the table, it looks differently than a typical family. I definitely stray away from saying normal. Normal is just the average of abnormal, right? But a typical American family out there is not going to approach their child that is having these challenges, or a sibling is having these challenges, in the same way you guys do. So just explain to me, and maybe you have an example too, of just different ways that you actually approach and actively parent with all of this under your belt.
Sure. I think there's quite a few different things, and we have to use different tools in the moment, but definitely respect for our children. We expect them to respect us, but we also respect them as people. I think people forget or don't realize that children are still people, and they're paying attention, and what we do now really impacts who they will be later. And so we try to treat them as we want them to be and expect them to be. Even when they're not acting that way in the moment, we try to really look for their heart intent, and then encourage them to be who they really are. We all have bad moments, and we don't act the way that we really are. We all have mistakes, and that's awesome, because then we get to learn through them. So, we really have to be flexible, really do a lot of forgiving and a lot of apologizing, and just really love on each other the best we can, and just help them understand that life's not perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to expect perfect. You just be authentic and be loving and look for someone's heart intent. That's really important. Yes.
And if I can take that a step further, we didn't realize it at the time with our firstborn, but when you get that initial diagnosis, it's always a lot of dreadful things. Right. And they never say, hey, it could be great. They usually say, this is bad, right? You may
Right.
not walk. He may not talk. You may not, whatever. Bad, 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 bad. And so our first day as parents was an introduction to the world of parenting with that sort of diagnosis.
Mhm.
Well, it wasn't actually day one, but it was like day 5.
Yeah.
It was the same week. So our first week as being parents was kind of like a pop in the face, right? With some hard reality checks. And so it was incumbent upon us to figure out, because I was supposed to go on a deployment the day after my son was born. I was supposed to leave and go to another continent. She would have been left home alone with a newborn with this condition,
Right.
right? So we had to essentially fight through that and the cloud of what might happen. And so the idea was that we were not going to take any of that laying down. We were not going to allow what we eventually coined, or not coined, but just come to understand that the diagnosis that we were given was not going to be the prognosis for our kid.
Mm,
We were not going to let that
love that.
numerous list or a lengthy list of bad things be the outcome and just say, okay, we're going to go with what you say. We're going to just strap the kid into a chair. They'll be on all kinds of pharmaceuticals for the rest of their life, and you can expect nothing. Well, obviously, if that's what you do, that's what you're going to get. So
Right.
the
Right.
expectation in our home with our children is that we're going to do everything that we can to give you a good life with the demands of you growing and developing typically,
Mhm.
right? We're going to treat you like you're going to talk and that you're going to walk, and we're not going to let you scream and throw a fit because you have a condition of some sort. We're going to give you incredible academic stimulation, even though there's no expectation from the medical profession that
Mm,
you're ever going to intake any of that. So that was part of it. And as we said earlier, we have a couple kids with special needs. And so we had to do that. And so it's really cool that you see that the other kids sort of catch on to that as well. So even whether you're a typically developing kid or atypical, you're going to have that expectation of pulling your weight around the house and doing your work academically and being polite
Mhm.
and all of the things. So there's no excuse
Yeah.
for somebody for bad behavior or not trying, right? Now they may not do a good job because they're not capable of it yet, but there's the expectation that you are going to try and
Yeah.
try and try. And so that's a facet of it as well.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes, I want to come live in your house. So, yes, I don't I don't believe that enough parents or that a majority of parents out there really believe that their kids have this ability to step up. I feel like, especially in America, but I work in a lot of different countries as well. And I just see this a kid is a kid, right? They're just kids. And I will tell you, I put out a post. I don't know, this was months ago, you guys. And I put out a post about chores because I believe that if you live in a house, you need to be responsible for helping take care of the house. We're all a team. We all work together. You help me, I help you. We all pitch in, all these things. Anyway, wow, did I get the responses back from people saying a child should never have the adult responsibilities until they're an adult, and I was talking about sweeping, y'all. I wasn't even talking
Yeah.
about, it was like trashes and sweeping, some taking care of the kitchen,
Yeah.
bathrooms. And but they were, saying that it was child abuse and all of this. And I was dumbfounded. I shouldn't have been, but I was dumbfounded just listening to these people. And so my biggest question I walked away from was, okay, well, if you just say, well, a kid is a kid, their job is to play in the mud and throw fits for 18 years. And then when they're 18, it's like, now it's time to buck up. They have no foundation for that whatsoever. And
Yeah.
you then are putting these false expectations on them to all of a sudden like, oh, well, now, they're an adult, so let's get to it. And if you don't know how to be, then you're bad. And it's like, what? It's so crazy to me. It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
It really sets up the kid for failure. I mean, if you
Yes.
cannot equip someone, I mean, you would never expect someone to just, be great in the military, but not go through boot camp.
Right.
How do you expect someone to live in our economy in the world where there's a harsh government? I mean, the judge does not look for your heart intent, right? If you are speeding or doing things against the law, you're not going to get a chance to learn the lessons that you need to learn out in the world. And
Right.
so we very much believe that we can use things like chores as a wonderful tool. Our children, we've watched them, and then friends of ours who also implement these same types of leadership training, that when they accomplish a skill like that, they feel so proud, and it increases
Yeah.
their sense of independence and self-confidence. And actually, we sat down with our children. We love to interview our children. It's fantastic. They love it too when we do. And we said, so, if we were going to talk to parents about how to build your kids' self-confidence, what would you guys say? And it was really fun to hear their answers, and our daughter's like, oh, teach them how to cook a meal. That feels so good. If you can serve a meal to your grandparents and your family, you feel so good, and every single response we got from them was literally tied to some kind of thing they were so proud of, most of the time having to do with us having trained them how, and then let them do it and trust them. They want to be trusted. And so when we turn over those sort of jobs, it's not that, oh, we're suddenly forcing something on them. We're giving them an opportunity.
Yes.
We're giving them trust. We're giving them a way to be a part of a community and to give into a community. And as human beings, that's so vital to our well-being, is to be in community and to serve others that are also in turn serving us. And, when you don't give your child that opportunity, they are going to have a bumpy ride. And that's how you end up with so many kids living in the basement who can't get work, who have all the loans, and mom and dad end up miserable, but they don't understand. And suddenly they find themselves shocked. Well, why is my kid having so much trouble? Why is my kid in trouble with the law? Why is my kid here in my basement? Sometimes those things happen and it's not got anything to do with the parent.
Right.
But it's important that on that journey, parents assess that and really take into consideration that this home is a training ground.
Yes. Yes.
It's not a playground. Sure, there's times for that, but it's a training ground to equip our kids for a wonderful life where they can have success. And that's something we really work on with parents that we help.
Yes.
To know how to have your child know those skills, and to do it in a way that's loving, that's encouraging, that's forgiving, that teaches them that you can fail and you are still a great person. It's okay to fail, and it's okay to say no, because you need to learn how to have boundaries. So we encourage the families to let their kids do that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Well, no, it was a learning experience. I mean, everything is right. And so, so I call that, so it's the 65-70 training zone in the teachings that I do. So 65-70 is how many days you have in 18 years, and really putting that into perspective of, a day is just a day. Well, a day's not a day. That is one of your 65-70. In fact, it was so funny. Every once in a while, I just like to, I do morning journaling and everything. And so I was like, I wonder where my kids are in their 65-70. And it was my oldest day 6,000. I looked it up and I was like, oh, it is day 6,000. So I went in there and I was like, well, happy day 6,000 of, being in existence. So it was funny. She got dressed for school. We were going to take her there. She gets her license next week. Oh, I'm gonna have a heart attack. But anyway, so she was like, well, I dressed up for my day 6,000 today.
Big day.
It was a big day. It was a big day. But yeah, so the 65, this idea of the 65 training zone, and what you're talking about too, a training zone, because if we just expect them to grow up without training, where are they going to get trained from? Everyone needs training of whatever you do. I mean, we all had to be trained how to walk, for goodness sake, so whatever we do, we're going to be trained. And so if we're not training them as parents, the people that know them intimately we have the ability to, not everyone does, but we have the ability to know them intimately. If we're not their coaches, their mentors during this time, who is TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah.
and,
Right.
and it boggles my mind and terrifies me to know that so many kids are being led by that today, that is where our future leaders are coming from, is TikTok today. Right.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I noticed. And part of the reason we built the course the way we do is because when I joined the Navy just a week or so, went to boot camp a week or so after I turned 18, right? And shortly after that, I was in Navy school with all these other guys who were also 18. Well, there was a guy who just opened a checking and savings account with a local bank, right? We were making about $600, $700 a month. I mean, we didn't make a lot of money after taxes, right? As an E2, E3 in the Navy. But he thought because he had a checking account, he could go out and buy a brand new Corvette.
Oh,
right. I have
okay.
a check. Well, yeah, you've got like 50 of them there, but it doesn't mean that you can write a check for a Corvette, right? Because your bank account has about $80 in it, right? Completely lost on him. He had no idea
Wow.
conceptually of how basic financial stuff works.
Yeah.
Similarly, there are kids, who leave home to go to college. They have no idea how to do their own laundry.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Or,
yes.
the folks who go and now they're going to get that first job and they have no idea how to cook. Like, all right, you got a job, you can pay for that apartment. What are you going to eat? You have no earthly idea how to keep yourself sustained, because if they do that method where you just get pampered for 18 years and then all of a sudden you're going to graduate from high school and all these skills and attributes are going to be gifted to you. That doesn't happen anywhere in the world, folks. And so if you haven't spent time diligently preparing and doing those lessons, making mistakes, learning from those, getting better, you're going to go out to join the military, get that first job, or go to college thoroughly unprepared for what you're about to experience.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. And sometimes too, I've definitely noticed in clients I've worked with and people I've talked to, some people just don't know, right? And it's this generational passing down of, oh, well, they're just kids. I'll raise them, make sure they survive for the first 18 years, and then they got it from here, right? But their idea of survival is literally like heart beating, breathing, and it's not thriving. It's just survival. So really putting a stop in that generational cycle and being like, well, where are we going to stop this? Like, where do you want your kid to actually be? Where do you want to actually be? I always say this is why I love working with families. I'm like, this is 18 years of your life as a parent too. Like, don't you want to thrive and grow and be, be more amazing at the end of this than you are right now? I know everyone does. No one just wants to exist and be like, check off another day, right? That's not fun for anybody, but unfortunately it is the world many, many people live in because they haven't had the exposure to training and leadership and understanding. And when I say leadership, and I think when you guys do too, I don't mean that I'm training kids to go out there and be CEOs. They could use it for that. Absolutely. They could use it for the military. Absolutely. Whatever they want to do. But it's that internal leadership, right? I'm going to date myself here because Blockbuster just came into my head, but I was like, I am like, if you are an employee at Blockbuster, or used to be, it doesn't even exist anymore. But I was like, for all of you youngins listening, that is a video service that used to happen. You would go in and buy or rent VHSs and bring them back. So anyway, you cannot become a prime employee at Blockbuster sitting behind that counter without that internal leadership that you're going to have, right? And we've all seen the difference between the people that are like, hey, how are you doing? It's great to meet you. And how can I help you? And what do you want? Okay. And there's that difference in there, and you see the leadership spark in them. And sometimes you don't, but it doesn't mean that it can't be in there or that it couldn't have been in there before. We all have that ability. I never want people to think that we've all heard you're a born leader, right? Well, everyone is born with the potential to lead themselves and other people. So I'm sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I agree with you so much. And something else that I just want all families to understand is that people put a negative light on discipline or training or chores so often. And yet what they forget is that this is a path for our children to have an easier life, to have a happier life. Because if success and leadership come naturally to them, and it's no big deal to run your laundry, cook a great meal, and know how to do something you love to do because you're self-disciplined enough to get yourself to a type of work that you enjoy, your life suddenly has more space in it for wonderful things. You have more opportunity to really love what you're doing and to have a very positive experience. Whereas if you're struggling to do the very basic things because no one gave you the chance to learn them and to become proficient while you were young and very capable and had all that time on your hands to learn those basics, now suddenly you're set up to have a much harder life because you don't know how to do basic things and you're focused on that all the time. And that doesn't have all the opportunities you would have had to have spare time because life was easier for you. You knew how to run it. It's just, we see it so much as disadvantaging your child for their future adult life if you don't. And it can impact your relationship too, because we see this opportunity to train our children as a bonding experience. It's such a wonderful time of learning together because we as parents grow so much during that time. And then as we're growing together, it's just, it can be such a fantastic and then lifelong relationship that you build if you focus on it that way, instead of, the kid leaves at 18 and that's it. They can't stand the fact they have to come home at the holidays.
Right.
Why did you spend all that time? Why don't you have a wonderful relationship and a family you love? What does the holiday look like when your kids are married and they come home? How do you want it to feel? Think about that. And then let's work backwards to make it happen. And so I think it's just such a matter of really mindset and understanding that we're not disadvantaging at all. This is to help.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys, we're so connected in our thoughts and in our actions, because I'm always telling people, so what do the holidays look like in 20 years when they go up to hug you or you go up to hug them? What is actually between the two of you? Is it positivity? Is it animosity? Is it frustration? Is it welcoming? Is it warm? Like, what is between you when you go to get into that hug, right? Is it a welcomed hug or is it I need to go hug her now, And so what is that's between you? Because whatever's between you, it's starting right now. Whatever's between you then is starting right now. Oh my gosh, you guys, I feel like we could talk for like 9 hours. I really do. But before we go, first I want to ask what advice, just like maybe one or two things, quick advice that you could give the listeners here today, and then let us all know where we can find you.
What advice? You'd better answer that one because mine's going to be too long.
Oh, it's going to be too long? Then it's probably really good. Okay, so I'll start while he sees if he can shorten his up. I think for me, if I was to talk to a mom just in the beginning of this journey, and she hasn't gotten far into it, and maybe she didn't have a good leadership example at home, I would say really find a mentor. If it's through books, audiobooks, whatever, podcast, find a mentor, and then just do little things. Just pick something every day or week to try and be so gracious to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Let yourself make mistakes and forgive yourself for those. And just really work from the heart. Try to be in tune with yourself and really look at your child's intent and understand their developmental stages. Because as you're connected with your child and giving grace to yourself for failures, but always inputting yourself with new and positive information on how to make this success happen, you will. Every tiny little step just builds and builds and builds until you look back and you can't believe how far you've come. And so that's probably just one of a million things I could say. Were you able to shorten yours up?
Maybe, we'll see. My recommendation for fathers would be
Mm.
to embrace your role as both husband and father and treat that as primary as compared to your job, which is important, and hobbies or entertainment or anything else that those would be less important, obviously. Because I think across at least the United States, especially in the military, I saw it. Oh my gosh, all over in the military, people put their career in number one spot at the expense of their family,
Yeah.
at the expense of their wife, and at the expense of their children. I would strongly advise you not to do that, but instead to really embrace your role as a husband first, and as a father, not necessarily second, but right after your role as a husband. And likewise, seek good mentors who can help you with that. It's good to be very proficient in your career, to do well, to have success and whatnot, but not at the expense of your family, because that career is going to come to an end. Your family will hopefully endure. So that would be my advice.
Oh, so
Find a good
good.
mentor there,
Yes.
and really embrace that primary job and responsibility.
Right. We all need that mentor, right? We're trying to guide them, and then we need guides for us. And it just it's a cycle. We all are learners, like lifelong learners. Absolutely. Awesome. I was actually just working on something this morning, and BB King has a great quote, and it says, "A day without learning is a wasted day." And I was like, yes, it is. Okay. So where can we find you guys?
Sure. So we're trying to be in lots of places so that it's easy to find us. So on Instagram, we're Family Success Secrets. On Facebook, we have a page and a group, both called Family Success Secrets. We have a brand new webpage that's called FamilySuccessSecrets.com. And on all the podcast platforms, Apple and many, many others, we have our podcast, which is Family Success Secrets as well. And if you wanted to hop onto our newsletter, that is podcast.FamilySuccessSecrets.com. And we just put out, occasionally, not all that often, but any content we think is valuable, coupons, information, upcoming events, that sort of stuff.
Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being on here. And I think we will definitely be collaborating and working together in the future, and having you on here again, because we are so in line with what we do. And I love that you are out there impacting communities and families and fathers and mothers and kids, and just your own kids, which we didn't get to dive too much into today, but I can't wait to talk to you more about that in the future. So thank you so very much for being on here, you guys.
Thank you, Nellie.
Yep. It's a lot of fun being with you.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.